Denali, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. It's
Yeah.
been a pleasure. I'd love to start off. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, and would love to dive into the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wear a lot of hats, is where I'll start. I obviously there's my Note to File hat, so co-host of the Note to File podcast. I think officially started hosting about a year ago. Before that, I was doing some like post-production stuff. But really focused on just like bringing awareness to different things in the industry and bringing new voices forward, like the goal and mission of it. And then if I put on my other hat, I VP of Sales and Strategy at Viva, focused on site solutions. I've been at Viva about 9 months, but I've really spent my career in clinical research technology for sites for the better part of decade plus and more. And so really focus on supporting sites. And so they meld together really well in the sense of trying to like make the industry better, do better, support folks who need support and bring up the voices that aren't often heard. So that's like my, in a nutshell, like professionally who I am. I also have two kiddos. I live in Madison, Wisconsin.
Nice. You're not far from me, about 4 hours away. Minnesota, Minneapolis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oof.
You might have gotten the snow that we had yesterday or today, but yeah.
We didn't. Our weather here has been absolutely bonkers, and it's been like in like the 50s and 60s. Like we
Wow.
have no snow. It's which is weirdly unusual. I don't know why we're in this little bubble, but yeah, it's been wild. It's gonna get colder again, which again, that's unseasonably warm for
Lucky
us.
you.
But
Yeah, we had the 50s, everything like melted. We had green grass, and
yeah,
then all of a sudden, boom, we got 5 inches of snow. So,
yeah, so I'm
oh,
looking at right now. I still got grass. So we avoided that, luckily, but I'm
lucky
sure
you.
more to come. More to come, I'm sure.
Denali, I've seen quite a few of your videos, especially on the side of things and in the conversations. One of the things that I'd love to get your perspective. You've been on
Yeah.
a lot of conversations with a lot of people. Where are you seeing this industry going? What have you seen changed over, I don't know, the past 5, 6, maybe even 10 years?
Yeah. So like my first answer is going to be pessimistic. I tend to be realistic and tend to be a little bit pessimistic in my view of things. I think a lot of things haven't changed, and I think fundamentally that's a problem. I think a lot of the challenges that we're talking about today are challenges we were talking about last year, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. You go to conferences, right, and you hear the same challenges, which I guess silver lining or flip side of that means there's lots of ways we could improve and innovate, which is there's a lot of opportunity. I see fundamentally, I don't know, I think where it boils down to it, I don't know. I was having this conversation with Brad the other day about where I think there's change. And I'm trying to decide if it's because I want to see change there or if change is actually happening. But I think fundamentally the core issue that causes and lots of issues like grow out of like root issues in our industry is this lack of communication, poor communication between the parties involved. So sites, sponsors, vendors, I think there's this dynamic that can be miscommunication at best and like contentious at worst. And I think that fundamentally is like a core for why we have so many problems in the industry when it gets to we're developing protocols that sites can't run. Sites can't recruit the patients because the I&E criteria aren't realistic. Sites are gathering data, but the sponsor can't answer the scientific question on it. It's like this finger pointing, like we don't communicate well, and it causes a ton of other problems to roll from there. And I think what I want to say is that I think we're starting to see maybe more true interest and like collaboration and coming together within these various parties where like sites and sponsors are actually coming together and talking. I think vendors have a place in that to facilitate or to help streamline communication potentially. But I'm hoping that the more people I've talked to, the more people seem to really actually want to be like, I'm a CRO. I really want to talk to sites and I want them to understand, or I'm a site and I really want the sponsors to talk. I want to talk to the sponsors. I'm hearing a lot more like genuine desire to actually communicate with each other as opposed to just like finger pointing, which has been cool and I think will be a big thing, but that's a huge hill to climb to solve that problem. So I'm hopeful the more people I talk to, the more I feel genuine interest to facilitate collaboration and communication. Again, I also just really want that to be the case. So I'm trying to decide, am I just trying to find like confirmation bias because I want that? But I'm hopeful that maybe that will be the change. And one of the things maybe because like our industry this year has seen a lot of threat from the outside, right? Like politically, funding wise, tariff wise, like how we are impacted by the greater world. So I wonder if it's almost like an outside threat we band together.
It
I don't
could
know.
be. You brought in something innovation. So when we think about
Hmm.
innovation, I think innovation has been happening throughout this industry. I've been in this industry for about 27 years, and I don't know that I've seen it all, but I've seen plenty. But from your lens, as you sit where you are, you work at Viva, you talk to probably a lot of sites. What innovation
Hmm.
you feel like is working, what's not working, and how much of
Ooh,
that you feel like can take over that collaboration piece that you're talking about?
yeah. Innovation that I feel like the innovation that works is innovation that's developed together. I think when folks are trying to develop a solution in isolation or in a box is when they start developing solutions that don't actually meaningfully impact like the concerns or address the concerns of the end users, where I think like maybe it's impressive for fundraising, so people do something and that doesn't solve anyone's actual problem. It just sounded really cool. Where do I see true innovation happening? I think, hmm, it's a great question. And I know this like my gut response. I don't even like the answer that pops into my head because it feels too cliche. But my thought is I think AI in some in capacity is going to be a piece that comes in and really just like innovates in the fact that like it's not doing something in a slightly better, different way. It's going to change how we do things. I think AI in some form or facet. And then I also think interoperability between systems. Like those would be the ones who like innovate in the way at scale to where we actually change how we're working. We're not just making it incrementally better.
Yeah, AI is interesting. I think when AI first came out, honestly, I'm not sure that I was as optimistic as a lot of people, just because
Hmm.
I've seen the world of DCT. Seen the world of like digital biomarkers and how all of this stuff died fairly quickly. But even as you start looking at AI, how much of it is really sticking and how much of it is
Hmm.
not? A lot of it is honestly not really sticking. And I feel like a lot of people are just throwing AI onto everything just to make like their product sound sexier, for lack of better words, or
Yep.
maybe to your point,
Yeah.
like so that way they can get more money from a funding perspective. Mm.
I absolutely agree. And I think DCT is a really good example of this. Like you used to go to conferences and everyone was splashing DCT everywhere. Now no one like well, some people still talk about it. Dan Shell will still write his articles about DCT. We know he loves it, right? But and again, I think it's interesting because I think DCT is I think we were doing DCT to an extent before we made a big deal out of it, and I think we're still doing it, and we're not making a big deal out of it. I think AI will be one of those things where we were doing elements of AI for a while. Like we were doing machine learning. Like these were things that were already doing at some level. Then we made a big deal out of it because someone fundraised on it and we all threw it on there. And then I think it will die down as far as like the hype, but I think it will stay, the pieces that work will stay embedded. But to your point, I think so many people are like, I'm doing AI. And so, no, you're writing a Gemini prompt. Like that is not you doing AI. But I
Yeah.
think there are ways where like it feasibly could impact it. I do have concerns, particularly in our industry, about AI, however, because I think AI is so much based on like data. Like you build your models based on all of these on the data, and that's what you train it on, right? It has to have data to train on it. And our industry fundamentally has a data problem in the fact that our data from years and decades is not representative. And so if we're training a model on data that we know has holes, and we're not aware of it, we're not doing it in a proper way, the AI we're using is also going to have holes, or they're not even be holes because we're not going to see it. We're going to assume that it doesn't. So I think we have to be really careful, especially because we know our industry's historic data is not representative.
I come from the data world. I used to do a lot from my data management, like create case report forms and all this stuff. And I think one of the biggest questions we always ask about data is why are you creating all these like case report forms? How much of this really are you going to submit to the FDA? And only like
Mm-hmm.
a small amount of it, right? And we understand like the continuous amount of it, yes, it will drive some results and will give the statistician a better picture. But then also what we notice is about 30% of the data that we get from all these different studies and case report forms can probably be reusable for future studies, just from to inform the studies, etc. But I don't know how many companies are actually doing that. And then when you dive into the site world, a whole different gamma. You get patients. A lot of them are, we work with a lot of sites and we see
Hmm.
like the bad data that comes in, but also you think of like e-sources now here to, I don't know, a beefed up set of EDC for sites. I don't know, for lack of better words. But yeah, data, I feel like we have a lot of data. It is just so unstructured in so many different ways. And a lot
Hmm.
of people, they just, it's bad. They throw it out. They're not reusing it
Yeah.
in different ways. But can AI
Well,
work? Maybe. Um,
yeah.
I think AI has a good place. I think AI has a good place from administrative tasks, things of that nature. I think areas where I wonder about AI in the industry is can AI still really pick up the phone, call the patient, have the same, I don't know, same confidence as a human being, same empathy as a human being?
Hmm.
I don't know that we're there yet.
Yeah.
I don't know
Do you
that
think we'll
we're
ever get there?
done. Possibly, I don't know. I think the problem is that we've got to deploy it enough to listen to enough conversations. It's not just an appointment
Yeah.
setter anymore,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
You're actually having, you're picking up the phone, you're calling a patient, you're on the phone with them for 30 to 45 minutes, screening them, asking them questions, but then what are the answers coming in look like?
And what yeah.
And
And
then
how do
what
you
it
respond to
means.
the answer? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I think what even complicates it even more, there are no two studies the same. Every therapeutic area is different, and every disease population is different. Every demographic is different.
Yeah.
But even when you get to like cultural difference, I think there's, I always tell people when they say, what do you do? I'm like, man, I work in a very complex industry.
I was trying to explain to my 8-year-old what I did. And he was like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Where do I even start? Like, how do you explain clinical trials?" And then okay, then it's what like how I don't know. I struggled. Actually, I bought a book actually, how to explain clinical trials to kids because I was like, I don't even know how to start in like a way that's not he's just gonna like glaze over. Yeah, but I agree. It's complex. And I don't know, I think it's interesting that and maybe one of the innovations that we'll see in years to come is that the human element of it becomes the innovative piece of it. Like you have to like, I don't know. I think there's going to be a human element of it always, right?
There
Regardless of
is.
what we do.
It's actually, it's probably, it's one of the biggest things that we do. And it's probably like one of those things where nobody really knows a whole lot about it, but we're starting to push it out because we're seeing the push, which is basically we're pushing out like human beings into the clinical trial to be that middle layer to support the patients and the sites equally. And it's been interesting. It's been a trend. It's people are enjoying it. Companies are seeing kind of the difference because if you think about it, patients, you give them something, and then we're all relying on the sites to call them and help support them, but then the sites are overburdened. They don't have enough people. But then also, what if it's a technical problem? What if it's a protocol problem? So there's all these different things that
Yeah.
you have to figure out how do you facilitate all that. But yeah, I mean, my daughter came home the other day and she showed me this TikTok video, and she's like, "Yeah, this is exactly how I think of you." I'm like, "What?" So I look at it. And basically, this girl, somebody's asking her, "What does your dad do?" I was like, "I don't know. He's in meetings all day." Oh, so is he like a businessman? I don't know. Maybe. Does he travel a lot? He's like, yeah. So, anyways, that's just when you said that, but your kid, that's how my kids view me. Is I have no idea what you do. My wife does the same
So
thing.
I was talking to a friend who's in the industry as well, and their kiddo was in like some school like presentation thing. I was like, "What do you want to be?" I want to be like my dad when I grow up. Okay, what does your dad do? Oh, he talks on the phone and he makes money. Just like the lens of a child is fascinating to me, especially in like how do you explain, I don't know. Yeah, this industry, I feel that.
How do you explain any of it? Right.
Yeah,
Um,
agreed.
who do you work with the most? Is it sponsors or sites? I'm assuming sites.
I work with sites. For note to file, it's indiscriminate. We like to have everyone and anyone on from the clinical trials industry, honestly, even outside of the clinical trials industry, because I think they bring unique perspective. As long as they're like adjacent to healthcare, government regulatory bodies in general. So like across the board, get to talk to a lot of people I have no business talking to, and that's part of the reason I actually love podcasting, is because there's no reason I should be talking to an ex FDA commissioner or author of a book about patient engagement. Like people I would never talk in my normal day to day. It allows me to like it's just super cool and I love that. So get to talk with everyone in that regard. In for Viva, I specifically work on the site solutions team, which is a newer team within Viva. So historically, Viva has been sponsor facing technology for commercial, for life sciences, for pharmaceutical companies and life sciences. About 5 years or so, they started their first site solution, and then the past year has really bolstered up and said, okay, we're going to actually focus on sites and built out a site team, which is where I sit under the GM of the site solutions team, and then I oversee the sales and strategy of that division. So I work in that hat almost 100% with sites, although I say that and I just had the 4 conversations this week because we do also connect our site solutions to the sponsor technologies, to the pharma solutions. And so we work with sponsors to explain to them, like, yes, this is a site solution. No, you cannot buy it. This is why it's helpful for your sites. And then they can connect their two platforms. So we do education in the sponsor realm, but lion's share of my work is working with sites.
What do you feel is the biggest problems that you want to solve for within a site or a site network?
Man, I think what I would love is for to make research more financially viable for sites. I think they're doing a lot of really good work. They care a lot, and they oftentimes are not getting the funding or the empowering to make the decisions for their own path forward. They're getting EDCs, they're getting training, they're getting feasibility platforms like pushed to them. And like I want to empower the sites to make their own decisions, run their own operations, and then financially be able to actually do that. And so I think if we can find a way to give sites their own autonomy to function in a way that they can then financially actually do. So not saying, oh, buy your own systems, we're not going to pay you for it. Here's a system we provide you. I would love to be able to hear sites have their own systems that they get to choose, make sure they work for their organizations, and then also make sure that they are paid to do that.
Do you guys, so when you go out to sites, do you guys touch like patient engagement, compliance, retention, any of that?
Not as much. No, it's much more like operations, regulatory, and like data management. We don't necessarily do as much on at this point, on like the recruitment, retention piece of it. It is truly, and the For Better for Worse Viva is a software company, and so we
Mhm.
focus on that. We have no business or interest getting into some of the service side of things. We've drawn our box and said
Yeah.
this is where we're going to focus. We're going to do this. We're going to do this well. But they're absolutely, I think that's one of the biggest needs, right? Is that like patient engagement, enrollment, community action, activation. That piece of it, I think, is a huge challenge. Not one I personally, not one that I play in from a professional standpoint, but one that I recognize is like a huge challenge that needs to be addressed.
If you're not doing this job, what would you do? What would you want to be
Oh,
doing?
so wait, so do I have to have a job? Or
Maybe
because
you
if I was
don't
like
have to
won
have
the
a job.
lottery, if I won the lottery and didn't have to worry about any of it, what would I do? Versus honestly, so if I was going to work and I wasn't going to do this job, I would love to work with sites in like an optimization capacity to say, okay, I'm going to come in and understand who are you as a site? How do you function? How could we like help you meet your goals? Not just here's technology that's helpful. What are you trying to do? It almost sounds like consulting, but I hate management consulting because just in general, I think it's funny. But I would love that type of work to really continue to work with sites in a more holistic way and a more individual way to say, hey, we're going to work with you. This is how we're going to make sure you're super successful across the board. Maybe that's technology, maybe that's people, maybe that's process. I just think that the sites, and there's not a whole lot of resources to like sites can go to say, okay, I want to do this and make it better. What do I do? Oftentimes it's like vendors saying, hey, you should do this and I'm gonna get it to you, I'm gonna sell it to you. Or it's like they're coming from a sponsor to be like, yeah, you should do this. I'm going to give you a trial. There's not like a nonprofit type way to say, hey, don't pay us, but let's help you. You have like accreditation industries and all of that, but I'd love it to be like a true like resource for sites to say like, how do you do site work better? Because I don't think there's a like SOS, I think does a really great job of building some of that sort of framework, but it's that type of thing, but more of a ongoing organization and service and less of a event and community. I think that would be feel like I would be doing something good and something that's meaningful and with the type of folks I like working with. Like sites I feel are really passionate and really driven. And if you're delivering care at some level to patients, like there's some like good in them.
I feel like nonprofit in this industry is just difficult because everybody's got to make a buck for something.
Right. So if I didn't have to worry about money, that.
Yeah, I've always had an idea for doing a nonprofit mainly focused on educating patients as to why clinical
Mm.
trials are important. But it's almost like who's going to pay for it? Like you got to run a lot of ads, you got to do all this like educational material, and it's just not free. But From my perspective, I feel like money aside, that's one thing that's been on my mind for a long time because we go out and sometimes we interview patients, and
Yeah.
a lot of times it's that lack of understanding as to why a clinical trial is a good option or maybe even not.
hmm And I love that. I would love to be able to get out in the community more. It's something that on Note to File we've talked about. Do we do hit the road and just like interview people and say, hey, what do you know about clinical trials? Just using it as like a platform to educate folks. Because I think it is fascinating. Like I was getting a tattoo the other day and I was talking to my tattoo artist and I was like, well, if I say clinical trials, what do you think of? And like his perspective was so out and not what I was expecting. He started talking about trials for like different inks and how he was worried that they start banning the colors of inks that he liked if they ran clinical. But again, like it's okay, but that's just one person. Like the perception of clinical trials is wild to me. And I think we could, like to your point, do a lot better job educating folks. But to your point, how do you make it sustainable financially? It's tricky.
Yeah, because you think about every company does their own, they're all very focused on their disease areas, and rightfully yes, but I feel like as a greater community, people just need to learn in general why clinical trials are important.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
Outside of the ads, hey, here's a clinical trial, we'll pay you 1,200 bucks to come and be
Right.
part of it.
Or the clinical trials that they do know of are very polarizing and political. You have the historic ones like Tuskegee, which is not good. And then you have like vaccine trials, which is a politicized thing at this point. So there's just such a layer on that's been like added on top of clinical trials that like not only do we not understand clinical trials, now we have opinions about it without even knowing what it is.
Yeah, for sure. What do you feel like in the industry? What is it that you feel that we're doing as honestly as everybody that we know, whether it's on LinkedIn or off LinkedIn, that you feel that truly matters at the end of the day?
Ultimately, the goal of the industry at large is to find new therapies for patients so we can improve the quality of life and reduce the disease burden on the patient. So, like, ultimately, if we're doing that, I think that's like we should all be marching towards that. I think folks sometimes forget that. What's most impactful that's changing? I think transparency is a big piece. Folks being transparent, like having open, honest conversations, I think is one of the biggest things that we can do to change and move things forward, which is why I love coming on podcasts because I think it gives an opportunity to just have conversations that otherwise don't happen. So if we keep the underlying mission in line and then are like we're just authentic and transparent with each other, I think that's some of the biggest things that we can do. I think there's a lot of folks who maybe aren't so authentic and do things not for that core reason and gives me the icks.
It's unfortunate. We see it like every day, and it's funny. People talk about it behind closed doors, but then in the open, hey, how are you? I love you.
This is so great. Oh, this is wonderful. Yeah, I think there is a balance of you don't have to be a dick about it, but like I think sometimes I tend to probably be a little bit more blunt than some folks, and that's okay. Not everyone's going to be that way. You can do it without being an asshole, but I think yeah, to your point, like a lot of times people cover up and just big smiles, and then that doesn't actually nothing's going to change because we're not being authentic and we're not being transparent about what's happening. Because if we're not naming what's wrong, we're not going to be able to fix it.
No, not at all. And it's honestly the way that I interact as well. I feel like I want to be here. I want to be truthful to myself. I am who I am. I'll say it how I see it. Probably if I was working
Mhm.
for a larger company, I probably would have been fired long ago. But
It is a balance.
it totally is. And you learn over time. How do I
Yep.
balance it appropriately? So there's one question that I usually ask people. And
Okay.
so at the end of the podcast, I ask, not knowing who's coming on board next, what is the one
Okay.
question that you would ask that person? So for you, I have that question ready from the prior podcaster,
Okay. I love this. This is great.
which is, what is the one principle that has stayed with you and you think about every day when you wake up?
So I just touched on it, authenticity. I think for me, being authentic is going to automatically, if you are automatically who you are and you answer yes when it feels right and no when it doesn't, that's going to attract the people who you have something to learn from. and it's going to, and who have something to learn from you. And so I think if you can be authentic in the best of your ability in everything you do, whether that is work, with your kids, with your friends, I think that is a piece that I try to use as like a guiding principle in how I interact with the world.
I love it. Now, what is the one question that you would ask the next podcaster?
Oh, this is a phenomenal model, by the way. I'm just gonna say I love this. I
I,
think this is
I didn't
wonderful.
invent it, just an FYI. My team like heard it from another podcaster and they told me about it. I was like, oh, I really like this. So,
I love that. What was that? What is a question that I would ask someone? I think maybe like, oh man, I have so many questions. I think maybe mine is like, what is the one thing you wish you would have known when you entered in the clinical research field that you've learned through your time that you wish you would have known coming in? I think because I'm always fascinated with how people end up in the clinical research field, because I don't think anyone is like, you're like at a birthday party, I want to be a clinical researcher when I grow up. No one really has that. You never know it was a field. I didn't even know when I went to grad school and I have nothing to do like what I'm doing today. So I think what is the one thing you wish you would have learned or you would have known coming into the industry that you know now before as you entered it?
yeah, to
We'll go
your
with that one.
point, I came to this industry by accident and I've been in it for so long and I'm struggling to leave the industry. And it's interesting because early on, I was like, I'm just making money, right? We're just building a company and we're
Hmm.
all good for it. So it honestly probably took me a few years to truly
Hmm.
understand the importance of clinical research and the importance of patients. And honestly, it was at a perfect point when I started Delve because I'm here because I want to truly deliver something. I want to make it better for patients. That's just delivering on that promise of better patients and better patient care has been stuck with me ever since. But yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. Denali,
Cool.
thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate your
Yeah.
time. And until next time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful chatting.